That was the word my son-in-law. Daniel spat across the dinner table at me. His voice cut through the clinking of wine glasses and the soft laughter of my daughter's friends. For a moment, the whole room fell silent, as if even the air was. Ashamed of what he had said, forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. I sat there, fork in hand, the roast chicken growing cold on my plate. My hearing isn't what it used to be, but I heard that word loud and clear. My daughter Emma shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her eyes darting between me and her husband, silently begging me not to make a scene. I D-N single quotes. Instead, I lowered my fork slowly and dabbed the corners of my mouth with my napkin. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. Excuse me? Daniel smirked, swirling the wine in his glass like he was some big shot. I said, pathetic. This whole act of yours. Sitting here, pretending like you still matter, like you still have anything to give. The words hit me harder than I expected. I am 72, yes, but I've worked my entire life to provide for my family. I built a small construction company. From nothing, gave Emma every opportunity she ever asked for, and even helped Daniel start his own business when he married her. And now, I was pathetic? The guests at the table coughed nervously, trying to resume their conversations, but no one really could. The air had shifted. My daughter placed her hand on mine under the table, her touch trembling. Dad, please, just let it go. But inside me, something cracked. I didn't argue that night. I didn't raise my voice or slam my fist on the table like I wanted to. Instead, I smiled faintly, pushed my chair back and said only one thing, enjoy your meal. I stood up and left the dining room quietly. But as I walked out, Daniel's mocking laugh followed me like a shadow. He thought he had one. He had no idea that word pathetic would become the spark for everything that followed. When I got home that night, I sat alone in my recliner staring at the framed photographs on the wall, Emma's graduation picture, her wedding day, my late wife Margaret, smiling in the sunlight of a summer we thought would last forever. I whispered to myself, what would you have said, Margaret, if you heard him? See, my daughter Emma was my pride. From the moment she was born, with those tiny fists gripping my finger, I swore she would never want for anything. I worked long hours at the construction firm, sometimes sleeping in my truck at job sites, just to keep the business alive. Every brick I laid, every dollar I saved, was for her future. When Daniel came into her life, I wanted to believe he was the man she deserved. Charming, ambitious, sharp-dressed, but I had my doubts. Correct waiters in restaurants, the way he'd brag about investments as if he were some financial genius. Emma, blinded by love, defended him. Dad, he's just confident, she'd say, her eyes shining. Confident. No, it was pride. The dangerous kind. Still, I tried. I welcomed him into our family. I even gave him a loan, a large one, when he wanted to start his own business. A loan I never saw repaid. He told me it was an investment in Emma's future. But over time, the cracks grew wider. Daniel controlled the conversations at every family gathering, dismissing my opinions, cutting me off mid-sentence. He'd joke about me being old school, and the younger crowd would laugh politely. I swallowed it for Emma's sake. Until that night, till that one word, pathetic. I realized then that he had been waiting, perhaps even planning, the moment he could openly diminish me, to make me small in front of my own daughter, but he underestimated me, because while he laughed, he didn't know the truth about my finances. He didn't know that the company I built, though I retired, still paid me dividends. He didn't know about the properties I quietly purchased over the years, or the savings account that had grown untouched. He thought I was weak, finished, irrelevant. But Margaret and I had built more than just a life. We had built an inheritance, and though Emma was my only child, my heart had been weighing a question for months, whether she and her husband even deserved it. That night, Daniel unknowingly gave me my answer. The days after that dinner were heavy. I tried to keep myself busy, pruning the rose bushes in the garden, repairing a squeaky door, reading the same lines of the newspaper over and over, but Daniel's voice still rang in my ears, pathetic. It was like a stain I couldn't scrub. Out a week later, Emma called me. "Dad," she began softly, "Daniel feels bad about what he said." I could hear him in the background laughing at something on the television. "He didn't sound sorry, does he, Emma?" I asked, my voice calm. She hesitated. "Well, maybe not bad. He thinks you need to accept that times are changing. That you should step aside. Step aside." I gripped the phone tighter. "Step aside from what, Emma? From my own life? My own dignity?" She didn't answer, only silence. That's when I knew Daniel had his claws in her. It's my sweet, gentle daughter, who used to sit with me on the porch eating ice cream after school, was now defending the man who openly mocked me. 2 days later, the betrayal deepened. I stopped by their house, unannounced, with a basket of apples from my tree. When I walked in, they weren't expecting me. Papers were scattered on the dining table. Contracts, bank statements. My name was on them. "Dad, wait." Emma rushed to block my view, but it was too late. I had already seen enough. Daniel leaned back in his chair, not even ashamed. "You caught us. Well, since you're here, let's talk. You've got assets, properties, cash, just sitting there. It's time to put it to use." My chest tightened. "Use for who?" He grinned. "For us. For Emma. For the future. You don't need all that money. You can't even spend it at your age. But we can. We deserve it." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She didn't speak, not a word to defend me. I placed the basket of apples on the counter gently, like my hands might break if I held them tighter. And I walked out. On the drive home, the betrayal sank in fully. My own daughter, my only child, standing silent while her husband carved me up like a carcass on paper. But betrayal has a strange effect on a man my age. It doesn't always break you. Sometimes it sharpens you. That night, I pulled open the locked drawer in my study. Inside were folders, old property deeds, bank account summaries, my last will and testament. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, and for the first time in years, I read every line carefully. And as I did, a plan began to form. After that night, something in me hardened. I still played the role of the quiet old man whenever I visited, nodding along as Daniel spoke about his big deals and future empires. But behind that silence, I was watching, listening, preparing. I started small. I called my lawyer, Mr. Collins, a man who had handled my affairs for decades. We met in his oak-paneled office, the smell of leather and old books filling the air. He poured me a coffee and asked, "So, what's troubling you?" I slid the folder across his desk. "I want to make some changes." He adjusted his glasses and flipped through the papers. "Changes to the will?" "Yes," I said evenly, "and I want it airtight, ironclad. The kind of thing no smug son-in-law can contest." Mr. Collins raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Understood." Meanwhile, Daniel grew bolder. He began calling me directly, pretending to care. "Hey, Pops," he'd say over the phone, his voice slick with false cheer. "You ever think about downsizing that old place of yours? I mean, it's too big for one man. You could move in with us." I'd chuckle, hiding the steel in my voice. "I like the space, Daniel. It keeps me breathing." What he didn't know was that I had already transferred the house deed into a trust. He could circle me like a vulture, but he'd never touch it. Emma, on the other hand, grew distant. Whenever I visited, her smiles felt forced. She was trapped between loyalty to me and loyalty to her husband. Yet every time she chose silence, it felt like another knife. The tension came to a head at another family gathering, Emma's birthday. Daniel raised a glass of champagne, and with that same smirk from before, said loudly enough for everyone to hear, to Emma, who has the patience to deal with, "Well, some people stuck in the past." The room chuckled politely. My face burned. But I kept calm, simply lifted my own glass and said, "Two patients and two surprises." He laughed, thinking I was harmless. But across the table, Emma caught my eyes. For a flicker of a second, I saw worry in hers, as if she sensed that beneath my calm exterior, something was moving, and she was right, because what Daniel didn't know was that his arrogance was feeding my resolve. Every jab, every insult, every greedy glance at my assets was a stone I placed in the foundation of a plan that would leave him speechless, and it would all come down to one night, a night he'd never forget. The first crack in Daniel's confidence came on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember it well. The air smelled of rain, and the sky was the color of steel. I invited him to lunch at a small diner near the edge of town. He arrived in his tailored suit, his watch glinting under the fluorescent lights, looking every bit the man who believed he was untouchable. "Why here?" he asked, wrinkling his nose at the chipped coffee mugs. "Because," I said calmly, "this is where I've done business for years. Deals made here, built the house you live in today." We smirked and waved for the waitress. "Yeah, well, times have changed." I leaned back in my chair. "You're right. Times have changed. And so have my plans." He paused, the smirk faltering just a little. "What do you mean?" I sipped my coffee, letting the silence drag. "Let's just say I've been speaking to my lawyer." For the first time, his jaw tightened. He covered it with a laugh. "What? Changing your will? Don't be dramatic. Everyone knows Emma is your only heir. That makes me the future, whether you like it or not." I let him believe that. I didn't argue. Instead, I pulled an envelope from my jacket pocket and placed it on the table. His eyes lit up, greedy as if he expected a check. But when he opened it, he found nothing but a single sheet, a notice of trust transfer. The deed to my house was no longer in my name. "What the hell is this?" His voice rose, drawing glances from other diners. I smiled faintly. "Insurance, just in case someone thought I was." Pathetic. His face flushed red. He slammed the paper back on the table. "You can't just—" "I already did," I said, cutting him off. My voice was steady, low. "This is just the beginning." He stared at me, his confidence rattled for the first time since I'd known him. Tried to mask it with a sneer. But his hands told the truth. They were trembling as he pushed the envelope back toward me. I left it there, paid the bill, walked out into the rain with the faintest smile tugging at my lips. Because that was the turning point. For the first time, Daniel realized I wasn't the weak old man he thought I was, and I could see it in his eyes. Fear, small, but growing. He didn't yet know the full extent of what I was planning, but soon would. The night of reckoning came sooner than Daniel expected. It was Thanksgiving, a tradition that Margaret had always loved. Even after she passed, I made sure to keep it alive. The house smelled of roasted turkey, cinnamon pies, and wood smoke from the old fireplace. Relatives filled the dining room, their chatter and laughter carrying warmth through the halls. Daniel, as usual, played the host. He poured wine, cracked jokes, spoke loudly about his business ventures, made sure everyone noticed the new cufflinks glistening on his wrists. Emma smiled weakly, but I could see the strain in her eyes. When the meal ended, I tapped my glass gently. The room hushed. Before dessert, I began, my voice steady. "I have an announcement to make." Daniel smirked, whispering just loud enough for the table to hear. "Here we go again." I ignored him. I opened the leather folder beside me and pulled out a document. The official seal gleamed under the chandelier light. As you know, Margaret and I worked our whole lives to build something for this family. But in recent years, I've realized not everyone values what we created. The words cut through the silence. I could see Daniel shifting in his chair, his confidence faltering. "This," I continued, holding up the will, "is my final testament. And tonight, I will read it aloud." Murmurs spread around the table. Daniel raised his glass, trying to look amused. "Go ahead, old man. We're listening."
Yes.
I read slowly, clearly, letting every word sink in. To my beloved daughter Emma, I leave a small trust to ensure her comfort. To my grandchildren, should there ever be any, I leave education funds. And to my son-in-law, Daniel, I paused. Daniel leaned forward, a greedy smile spreading across his face. I leave nothing. Gasps filled the room. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. Daniel's smile froze, then crumbled. His face drained of color. "You can't do this," he hissed, his voice trembling. "I'm family." I met his eyes, calm as stone. "Family is earned, Daniel, and you've done nothing but insult, mock, and betray. You called me pathetic, but tonight you've learned who truly holds the power." He slammed his fist on the table, silverware rattling. "This isn't over, I'll contest it." My lawyer, Mr. Collins, who I had invited that evening, spoke up from the corner. "You won't win. Oh, this will is ironclad. Every asset is in trust, every deed transferred. There's nothing you can touch." Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. He looked around, searching for support, but found none. Even Emma lowered her gaze, shame burning her cheeks. The mighty son-in-law, who mocked me at dinner, now sat speechless, crushed beneath the weight of his own arrogance. And in that silence, I felt Margaret's presence as if she were smiling at me from across the table, proud that I had defended our legacy. The silence after I finished reading the will hung heavy, broken only by the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Daniel's face was red, his jaw tight, his hands gripping the edge of the table so hard I thought he might snap the wood. Emma's eyes glistened with tears. "Dad, you could have warned me," she whispered. I looked at her softly. "Emma, I tried to warn you for years, but you never wanted to see him for who he truly is." Daniel shot up from his chair, his voice shaking with rage. "This is a joke. He's just an old man trying to punish me because I dared to speak the truth. Pathetic." The word again. The very word that started it all. But this time, it didn't sting. It sounded hollow, desperate, like a man drowning, gasping. For air, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "Daniel, the only pathetic thing here is you begging at a table you thought you owned." Relatives whispered among themselves. A few even nodded. The room had shifted. His control, his smug confidence. It was gone, Emma finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Daniel, is this really who you are?" He turned to her, his mask cracking. "Emma, don't listen to him. He's twisting things. Without me, you'd have nothing." Her tears spilled over. "Without you, or without my father's money?" That cut deeper than anything I could have said. Daniel's face twisted, but he had no answer. He stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. For a moment, we all sat in stunned silence. Emma buried her face in her hands. "Dad, I don't know what to do." I placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You do, Emma. You've always known. Tonight, you just finally saw the truth." She sobbed quietly, and though my heart ached for her, there was relief too. Relief that the mask had been ripped away in front of everyone, that the truth was no longer mine alone to carry. As dessert was served, the mood of the room shifted. The younger cousins whispered about how Daniel had humiliated himself. The older relatives patted me on the back, telling me I had done the right thing. But I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. Because though Daniel was out of my house, I knew men like him rarely accepted defeat. He would try something, another scheme, another manipulation, and I had to be ready. Daniel did try again. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, a letter arrived at my doorstep. A legal notice. It was contesting the will. I almost laughed when I read it. All that money poured into lawyers for a battle he could never win. Mr. Collins handled it swiftly. The trusts were airtight, the transfers complete, the documents signed and witnessed. Within a month, the court dismissed his claim. Daniel had lost, officially and permanently. But his defeat wasn't just on paper. Emma called me one cold evening, her voice heavy but steady. "Dad, I asked Daniel to leave. I can't live like this anymore. I should have listened to you." I closed my eyes, a wave of sorrow and relief washing over me. "Emma, I never wanted to take away your happiness. I only wanted you to see the truth before it destroyed you." She came back home for a while, her eyes tired but free, the way a bird looks after flying out of a cage. For the first time in years, I saw glimpses of the daughter I remembered. Laughing softly, helping me tend the garden, sipping tea on the porch as the sun set. As for Daniel, I heard whispers through the grapevine. The business I once loaned him money for was failing. Investors pulled out. His name carried more scorn than respect. The man who once mocked me at dinner now stumbled through life, clinging to whatever scraps he could find. And me. I sat by Margaret's old rocking chair one evening, the will tucked safely in its folder. I whispered into the quiet air, "You were right, love. Respect isn't demanded. It's earned. And when it's lost, no amount of money can buy it back." I didn't seek revenge with fists or fury. My justice was calm, deliberate, final, the kind that leaves a man choking on the weight of his own arrogance. Daniel called me pathetic, but in the end, the look on his face when I read the will told the truth. It was never me, it was him. Age does not strip a person of their dignity or wisdom. When respect is denied, silence and patience can become the sharpest tools of justice.